And now we're going to dig into the MITRE ATT&CK methodology. Now, we touched on it a little bit in the last lecture, but in this one, we're going to go a little bit deeper because this is sort of an attack nomenclature that every cybersecurity professional needs to understand. It helps you to break down the attack chain of major threat actor groups today. So if we go to MITRE's website and we click on groups, right? I'm going to click Control, click this. You can see a list of various advanced persistent threat groups. So APT1, APT17, right? These are different hacking groups. A lot of them are state sponsored. But if you click one of these, let's say like APT28, it'll give you an overview of the group. Gives you some, alternate names for that group, because different threat research teams have different names for the same group. And then if you scroll down to the bottom, you can actually see the techniques that are used, right? So this is some of the things they did. And all the techniques, they're mapped to MITRE, right? So you can see the registered domains, imitating NATO, OSCE, security websites. These are some of the things that this particular group has done. You could scroll through all this, and sometimes we'll even see the commands, right? So this is an ILC. So if you see this particular ILC in your registry, that could be an indication that this particular threat cluster was on or in your environment. Doesn't mean it is the case, but it could be. It's something that you obviously need to take into consideration. Here you can see that they use the macro that uses this command, cert-util decode, to decode the contents of a text file storing a base 64 encoded payload. And this maps to this particular technique, T1140. So if you go to the main matrices, if you just go to mitre.org and you click on matrices, you can see all the tactics or the attacker goals along the top. And then all the techniques, how those goals are achieved along the bottom. And if you click the vertical gray bar, you can expand a particular technique. You see there's two here, and see the sub-techniques, right? So active scanning has a sub-technique for scanning IP blocks and vulnerability scanning. Gather victim host information has 4 sub-techniques. Like a little bar, you can see what those sub-techniques are. You can gather host information about the hardware, the software, the firmware, or the client configurations. And this is really important to know. Now, the nice thing about it is it's laid out in a logical fashion. So typically attackers will start with reconnaissance, right? They'll start fishing for information. They might search open source technical databases to get information about the victim organization. And how are they going to do that? Well, they might use Whois, they might use digital certificates. And this is how you can sort of go through this data. Then, of course, they're going to want to mobilize their resources and their attacking infrastructure. So they may just compromise a legitimate website. That's what compromised infrastructure refers to. And you can see some of the things they might do. They might host a virtual private server, or they might start a botnet. They might develop their capabilities by using malware, maybe even using exploits. And this just continues. So this is really, really good to know. And I strongly, strongly recommend that you actually at least read through all of the tactics. I mean, ideally, you would read through the techniques as well, because it will really give you a good understanding of how attackers think and how they work. And it'll also give you the language you can use to speak to other, cyber threat hunters, other ethical hackers, red teamers, blue teamers, and even management, because this is the language that we all use when it comes to speaking cyber. All right, so you've got execution, persistence. How do you survive a reboot, right? Privilege escalation. Okay, so you can survive a reboot, but now how do you elevate your permissions to a higher security context so you can wreak havoc on the system? And then once you do that, you'll probably have to worry about AV, so antivirus, or an endpoint detection and response platform, an EDR, like Carbon Black or CrowdStrike Falcon or Counterattack. There's so many different EDRs out there, and once an attacker might find a way to evade it one day, and then the next day it doesn't work, because it's constantly a cat and mouse game between the attackers and the defenders. And you can keep moving forward. You can see credential access has 15 techniques. You can, brute force, of course, that's one of them. But look at this. If you expand it, you'll see there's different ways to brute force. Password spraying, right? Password guessing, password cracking is not the only thing. Credential stuffing. And let's say you don't know what credential stuffing is, you just click it. It tells you that this is when data shows up in a public database. Sometimes when an organization is breached, all the credentials are dumped to pastebin or to the dark web, and you have clear text credentials that are now exposed to the public. Well, if you can map those credentials to a user, then maybe you can recycle or reuse those credentials, or what's known as stuff them. Use credential stuffing to see if you can authenticate to another resource in the target organization using those previously exposed credentials. As you can see, this is a very useful website, and you definitely should be well aware of it. Now, one other thing I want to show you is if you go to the Attack Navigator, you can have some fun with this. So we're going to go first to Scythe, and I'm going to download a MITRE ATT&CK layer. Okay, so let me show you what I'm talking about here. Let's pick, I'm going to go Ryuk ransomware. And let's grab the Attack Navigator layer. So I'm going to click this. Then I'm going to let's click raw. Sometimes that's what you need. You need the raw link. Yeah, so let's Control C this. Go back in here, Control A, delete, Control V. Click the little arrow. All right, so we're at different versions, but let's see if it works anyway. Sweet. So the cool thing about this now is you can see that for Ryuk, see it says Ryuk up here? Remember we got that from Scythe's GitHub. By the way, Scythe is a breach and attack simulation platform. It's a way that you can emulate a threat actor or an activity cluster that's affiliated with a particular nation state adversary. And you can use their tool to emulate that. It's a paid tool. It's not free. But there are free ones, like I think Prelude is an emerging free one. It's a rework of MITRE Caldera. But that's besides the point. That's a different topic. What I'll show you here is that these community threats are all layers. These are MITRE ATT&CK layers. And so you can just do what I did before. You click inside a particular APT. You find the attack navigation.json. You click on the raw stream here. Then you grab that URL. Copy it. Right click. Copy. You go back to Navigator and it maps the threat actors' techniques against the MITRE ATT&CK Framework. Right, so that is really, really useful. So we can create a new tab. And we can say, go to layer from URL. Let's paste in our new one. Click the little arrow. Click OK. And look. Now we've got Ryuk and we've got APT 41, which is really cool. So you can see here that these guys are using PowerShell. They're using the Windows command shell. Let me zoom out. Control minus. Yeah, so we can get a little bit more of it this way. You can see they're doing these different things for defense evasion. They're using bits. If you don't know what it is, you can just click it. I thought you could just click it. I guess you can't click it and pivot. But you can, of course, remember that TID, or you could just go back to MITRE ATT&CK and look for bits. Yeah, bits admin under defense evasion. So I'm just going to type admin. Bits jobs under defense evasion. Sorry, the text is really small on my screen. Even though it isn't for you, it is for me because I'm zooming in after I've recorded the video. So under bits jobs, you can see what this is, and it gives you a nice little explanation. So that I think is very, very useful. So, make sure that you get comfortable with MITRE. Understand these techniques. Go through these techniques. Read them. Click through the links. Don't be afraid to just kind of take your time and enjoy this. Because this is how you develop a real passion for this stuff. And the people in this field that have the most passion typically are the most, highest paid and also have the highest technical acumen. So you want to be in that group. All right. That's all we're going to do for this lecture. In the next one, we're going to jump into the MITRE Shield methodology.